Agnetha Fältskog's legacy cannot be contained within the boundaries of sound alone. While her voice remains one of the most recognizable and emotionally resonant in popular music history, what truly set her apart was the way she carried herself. Quietly assured, expressive without excess, and grounded in authenticity. From the moment she appeared on stage with ABBA, audiences sensed that she was not performing a persona, but inhabiting her own truth. Her presence felt natural rather than constructed, allowing people to connect not only with the music, but with the person behind it. This rare combination of vocal artistry and personal integrity became the foundation of her enduring influence, roots of expression and early confidence. Growing up in Sweden, Agnetha developed her musical voice long before international fame arrived. Those early years shaped not just her sound, but her sense of self. She learned to communicate emotion clearly, without exaggeration, and to trust restraint as much as power. Even in her earliest public appearances, there was a visible calm in the way she moved and expressed herself. Her style during this period reflected the same sensibility, simple, thoughtful, and unforced. Rather than chasing attention, she allowed her talent and quiet confidence to speak for her, creating a foundation that would support her through decades of visibility and change. Entering the global stage with ABBA. When ABBA stepped into the international spotlight, the world they entered was loud with expectation, color, and constant motion. And yet Agnetha Fältskog moved through it with a calm that felt almost instinctive. She did not resist the energy of the moment, nor did she surrender herself entirely to it. Instead, she found a way to stand firmly within the spectacle while remaining deeply connected to her own emotional center. As crowds grew larger and the lights brighter, her presence became a stabilizing force, both for the group and for audiences who felt her sincerity even from afar. Her voice, gentle yet clear, often carried the emotional heart of ABBA's music, creating contrast against the upbeat arrangements and elaborate productions. She embraced the excitement of the era without allowing it to erase her sense of self, and that quiet balance gave her performances a depth that transcended trends. In a time when many artists were consumed by the momentum of fame, Agnetha showed that it was possible to rise without losing one's inner footing, offering a model of grace under global attention, style as an extension of identity. For Agnetha, clothing was never about drawing attention for its own sake. It was a language through which she expressed mood, movement, and identity. On stage, her outfits were designed to work with her, not against her, flowing when she moved and catching light in ways that enhanced the emotional tone of the music. There was intention behind every choice, from the way fabrics reflected color under stage lights to how silhouettes supported confidence and ease. Nothing felt accidental, yet nothing felt forced. Off stage, her style shifted naturally towards simplicity, favoring clean lines and soft elegance that reflected comfort rather than performance. This contrast did not feel like a contradiction, but a continuation of the same truth. Her visual presence was always aligned with who she was in that moment. By allowing her style to grow from identity instead of expectation, Agnetha created a visual legacy that feels honest even decades later, reminding audiences that fashion becomes meaningful when it reflects the person wearing it. The language of stage presence. Agnetha's performances spoke volumes even in moments of stillness, revealing an understanding that stage presence extends far beyond sound. She knew how to occupy space with intention, using posture, subtle movement, and expression to deepen the emotional impact of each song. Her gestures were never exaggerated, yet they carried weight, as if every motion had been considered in relation to the story unfolding through the music. Clothing played a supportive role in this silent language, allowing freedom of movement and reinforcing the emotional atmosphere rather than competing with it. Audiences were drawn not only to what she sang, but to how she listened, to the music, to her fellow performers, and to the energy of the crowd. This sensitivity transformed performances into shared experiences, where emotion traveled effortlessly between stage and audience. In this way, Agnetha became more than a vocalist. She became a storyteller whose presence lingered long after the final note, etched into memory through feeling rather than spectacle. Fashion without excess. The era that shaped ABBA's rise was one of visual abundance, where boldness often tipped into excess. Yet Agnetha navigated this landscape with a sense of restraint that felt quietly confident. Her stage attire was colourful and expressive, but never overwhelming, always leaving room for the person beneath the fabric to remain visible. There was balance in her choices, an understanding that impact does not require overload. Rather than dominating attention, her style invited connection, allowing audiences to focus on emotion rather than distraction. This moderation gave her image a timeless quality, ensuring that photographs from the period still feel cohesive rather than confined to a single trend. By honouring proportion and simplicity even within bold design, Agnetha demonstrated that fashion can be expressive without becoming consuming. Her approach serves as a reminder that true presence is not about how much one displays, but how intentionally one shows up, allowing authenticity to guide every visual decision. Grace beyond the spotlight. Away from the stage, Agnetha revealed a quieter version of herself, one that resonated just as deeply with those who followed her journey. In casual moments, her clothing reflected ease and practicality, signaling a desire to remain connected to everyday life despite extraordinary success. These glimpses of normalcy offered reassurance that fame had not replaced her sense of humanity. Fans responded to this grounded quality, recognizing a familiar spirit in someone who could step away from applause and return to simplicity without hesitation. Her ability to transition seamlessly between public performance and private life reinforced the idea that identity does not have to fragment under pressure. Instead of building walls around herself, she maintained boundaries with grace, choosing when to step forward and when to step back. This balance fostered trust and admiration, showing that self-respect can coexist with openness, and that lasting connection is built on authenticity rather than constant visibility. Emotional clarity as strength. One of Agnetha's most defining qualities was her emotional clarity, a strength that shaped both her music and her presence. She did not overstate feeling or dramatize expression, choosing instead to let emotion flow naturally through voice and posture. This restraint gave her performances credibility, allowing listeners to feel rather than be told what to feel. In an industry that often rewards exaggeration, her subtlety stood out as a form of courage. She trusted that sincerity would carry its own power, and audiences responded to that trust with lasting devotion. Emotional clarity became a thread connecting every aspect of her public life. From the songs she sang to the way she carried herself under scrutiny, it allowed her to remain relatable even as her success grew, reinforcing the idea that vulnerability, when honored rather than hidden, can become a source of resilience and connection. Longevity through self-awareness. As years passed and cultural tastes shifted, Agnetha's relevance did not fade, largely because it was never built solely on trend or novelty. Her awareness of self guided each transition, allowing her to adapt without losing coherence. Rather than chasing reinvention for its own sake, she allowed growth to unfold naturally, reflecting life experience and personal evolution. This approach gave her longevity, ensuring that new audiences could connect with her work, while long-time admirers continued to recognize the essence they had always valued. Self-awareness acted as an anchor, keeping her grounded amid change and protecting her from the pressure to conform to every passing expectation. By honoring her own rhythm, she demonstrated that endurance in the public eye is less about constant transformation and more about staying aligned with one's core values. A legacy of quiet influence. Today, Agnetha Fältskog's influence is felt not through loud declarations, but through the subtle ways her presence continues to inspire. Artists and audiences alike look to her as an example of how authenticity can coexist with success and how elegance can be rooted in sincerity rather than display. Her legacy is woven into memories of music that felt personal, performances that felt honest, and an image that felt human. Rather than defining an era through dominance, she shaped it through balance, leaving space for emotion, individuality, and restraint. In doing so, she created a model of artistry that remains relevant, reminding us that the most enduring impact often comes from those who lead with quiet confidence, emotional truth, and respect for self. A relationship with beauty rooted in acceptance. Agnetha's beauty was often discussed, but what truly endured was how naturally she wore it. She never presented herself as unreachable or idealized, but as someone comfortable in her own skin. There was no sense of striving or performance in her appearance, only presence. This approach allowed admiration to exist without comparison, creating appreciation rather than pressure. Even decades later, her images evoke warmth rather than distance, reminding viewers that beauty grounded in self-acceptance carries a timeless quality that trends cannot erase. Navigating fame with boundaries. Unlike many artists of her era, Agnetha maintained clear personal boundaries despite intense public attention. She did not equate visibility with value, nor did she feel compelled to share every aspect of her life. This approach protected her sense of self and preserved the sincerity of her public work. Rather than diminishing her impact, this restraint deepened it, allowing audiences to engage with her artistry without distraction. In hindsight, her choices reflect foresight and emotional intelligence, qualities that resonate strongly in today's conversations about balance and well-being. Nostalgia that feels human. The enduring affection for Agnetha is rooted not just in memory, but in feeling. Her music and image are often associated with personal moments. First loves, family gatherings, quiet evenings, and shared experiences. When people revisit her performances or photographs, they are reconnecting with parts of their own lives. This emotional layering transforms nostalgia from longing into recognition, making her presence feel familiar rather than distant. She becomes a reminder of how music once felt personal intimate and deeply connected to everyday life. Influence without reinvention. Agnetha did not remain influential by constantly reinventing herself. Instead, her relevance endured because her work was honest and emotionally grounded. New generations discover her music not through hype, but through resonance. Streaming platforms and shared performances introduce her voice to listeners who may know nothing of the original context, yet feel an immediate connection. This continuity demonstrates that authenticity transcends era, allowing her influence to expand quietly rather than fade. Collective brilliance and individual balance. Within ABBA, Agnetha's role was essential yet never overpowering. Her voice balanced the group's energy, adding emotional depth and nuance. At the same time, the collective structure allowed her individuality to shine without isolation. This mutual reinforcement created harmony rather than competition, strengthening both her personal legacy and the group's cultural impact. Appreciating her contribution does not diminish the whole. It enhances understanding of how balance creates longevity, style that ages with integrity. As decades passed, Agnetha's style evolved naturally, reflecting maturity rather than resisting it. She adapted to changing aesthetics without abandoning her core sensibility, demonstrating that growth and consistency are not opposites. This evolution reinforced the idea that true style is not fixed but responsive, shaped by experience, comfort, and self-awareness. Her public appearances continued to reflect calm confidence, showing that elegance deepens rather than disappears over time, a quiet blueprint for modern influence. In today's culture of constant exposure, Agnetha's approach feels almost radical. She demonstrated that influence does not require constant presence, and that silence can coexist with significance. By prioritizing integrity over attention, she offered a model of success rooted in sustainability rather than saturation. This perspective resonates strongly now, as conversations around mental health, balance, and authenticity reshape how we view public life. Why her legacy endures. Agnetha Fältskog's legacy remains powerful because it is human. She did not rely on spectacle alone, nor did she distance herself behind perfection. Her voice carried emotion, her style reflected self-knowledge, and her choices revealed respect for herself and her audience. These qualities ensure that her influence continues to feel relevant, not as a relic of the past, but as a reminder of what genuine artistry looks like, a timeless expression of self. Ultimately, Agnetha represents something rare, an artist who succeeded globally without losing personal clarity. Her journey illustrates that confidence does not need to be loud, and that beauty does not need to be exaggerated to endure. Through music, presence, and thoughtful expression, she created a legacy built on connection, rather than performance alone. That legacy continues to inspire, not because it demands attention, but because it offers recognition, a sense that authenticity, when honored, can outlast any era